we're going to be building one of the right hip assemblies for Pupper. This is the full robot, on the full robot, and detached, it looks like this complete. So we'll start out with the abduction motor. So you're going to want to take one of your servos and use a servo horn to adjust the motor so that's in its neutral position. So I just go from one extreme, push it to the other extreme, and then go in between. It's at 90. And then I know now it's centered. And I'll put the disc on, align it roughly on a ridge. Take M3x6 socket head screw, get a Loctite on it, put it in, and tighten it down with the 2.5mm driver. So if you keep tightening it, the servo horn might rotate out under your hand, so you can also use a vice grip to hold the disc and then tighten it, which reduces the risk to the servo. So now we can test that we put it on right. You can drive it to one extreme, you can drive it to the other extreme, and I'll just put it back in the center. The next step is to attach it, fasten it to the inner hip piece. And we're making a right leg, so this piece is gonna go on like this. So take your M3x8 countersunk flathead screw, get some Loctite, and you can go in from the other side with a 2mm driver. You can now test the motion, the range of motion. You want it to be able to go from the neutral position to up 90, back to neutral, and down 90. So this looks good. Now we're going to put in the inner hip motor. And you can take your motor and you can put it in so that the horn is on the near side. And you can see it aligns with the hole. So that goes in like that. Take your M4x10 screw for plastic. You can kind of get it into the hole. And you're only putting these plastic screws on the mounting holes near the abduction servo. The next step is to take your M3x16mm button head screw, Loctite it, get it on your driver, thread it through the other servo mounting holes and into one of your standoffs. just tighten it by hand. We now want to put on the servo horn, and for this weekend we need to align it, so push it to one extreme, push it to the other, and then put it in the center of those two extremes. And actually this one was already set up by coincidence to be in the correct orientation where it's going down in the direction opposite to where the abduction motor is pointing. So once it's on there, you want to take a M3 by 8 button head screw, get some Loctite. This one's black alloy steel, but you might have stainless, which is totally fine. And just loosely put it in, because now we're going to take the M2 by 8s and they go in on the side, and we'll tighten those down to a light level. I'm going to now tighten down the center screw and alternate between the two side screws. I'll loosen this one up just a little bit. It seems like it got tilted. Go into the back one and then back on the front one. Great. So this side is done, and now we're going to work on the outer hip part. So take your servo motor, put it into the part, take your M4 by 10 screw for plastic, and screw in the 2 screws to the side near the horn, or near the spline. Great. Now we can put on the horn. So again, put it on, bring it to one extreme, bring it to the other extreme, put it about in the center. For this, we want the horn to be facing 90 degrees away from the inner hip motor when that one in its neutral position. So it's going to look like this. So I'll just go on and put it in that orientation, like that. Take another M3 by 8 button head screw. And the 2 M2 screws. Tighten down the center one first, followed by the sides. And it's important to get Loctite, especially on the screws going into the horn, since they tend to loosen. Okay, so we have this, and now we're going to screw together the 2 sides. So take your last M3 by 16. I'm going to put it on the driver through the servo mounting holes, and then screw into the standoff. And I'm going to do this lightly because it can be difficult to do the other standoffs if they're too tight. Last step is to screw in the standoffs that go through here and on the opposite side here. So for those, we can take M3 by 10 button head screws. And I'm gonna just do this lightly. And now that all four are in, I'm confident that I can screw them all down and tighten them all. Right, so now the right hip abduction assembly is complete.